Hello and welcome to another mini cast, the second one we've been doing. We were going to try and do these a little more regularly, but unfortunately, uh, illness has gotten in the way. But hopefully, we'll be back and doing a few more of these in the coming days. Today, we are going to be talking about the Pokemon tradable card game. So, I think out of all of us, Ian, you've probably got the biggest kind of affinity when it comes to Pokemon, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I used to play it a lot, like a lot. Like go to like little local tournaments a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I have not done that for a long time. I'd still maintain a few decks. They are not current meta. I mean, I know that there's like a new set out soon in terms of like new Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's based on the new starters from the new game. So I'm not that up to date, but I mean, I have played it for almost its entire lifespan until super recently. So I know the
Okay.
newest expansion's due out in May. So
Yeah. So, am I right in saying that at one point you were looking at becoming an ambassador,
I,
sort
I
of thing?
was actually
Yeah.
for a company I worked for, the Pokemon trading card ambassador. Is basically I turned up to things that our buyers were too lazy to turn up to. It was a slightly overinflated title. Uh,
Did you get to wear a badge?
I did not. Well, I
Oh,
had like a name badge, like when I went to events.
yeah, but
Yeah. You used to do a lot of teaching for the game as well, didn't you? Like, it tended to be when people used to come into the store. Sometimes you would teach some of the younger people how to play it, right?
Yeah, I've taught quite a lot of kids how to play Pokemon cards. Yeah,
Cool.
it's.
Do
I
you want
mean,
to give us an for the people at home? Do you want to give us an overview of how you play the Pokemon game? Because I
okay.
think
So
you're going to do a far better job of
you
explaining it than
have
I
a
could.
60 card deck. Um, you basically shuffle that. It's got to have enough. You're not allowed more than four of any card, and there's sort of rules set around that. But generally, a 60 card deck with your Pokemon, your trainer cards, which are your support cards, and energy, which you need to perform attacks. Um, you draw a hand of seven, and you have six prizes. So your hand of seven, you start off with must have a basic Pokemon in that you can play. Um, Otherwise, you have to redraw because you need the basic Pokemon, the only Pokemon that can be played on the field at the start without anything. And then your six prizes. These prizes will be taken every time you knock out an opposition Pokemon. Some Pokemon you get more prizes for, so they're like Pokemon now that they're like double team Pokemon that you get like three prizes for, and stuff like VMAX and stuff. You get two prizes for. I think you get additional prizes. I think the VMAX stuff you might get three prizes for.
GX used to get two, didn't you?
Yeah, GX
Hmm.
you get two.
Two?
EX,
I think it's
did
yeah,
you
I
get
think it's two
did
on
you get
EX.
two for EX? I think you did. And now yeah, you get three for like team ups and VMAX Pokemon. So then you basically flip a coin to see who takes your first turn. You can't attack on your first turn, and it's just a case of building up your Pokemon. So you can have a bench of five Pokemon. And it's a case of evolving them to different stages. It's kind of a it used to be quite dead in the game. You didn't have to evolve stuff. Everyone just used EX cards, which were basics, and it kind of streamlined the meta into something that was a joyless hellscape. Um, but recently, that with the VMAX stuff, you have to evolve them as you go. So it is more prevalent now, but very recently, it was something that's not as prevalent. Anyway, you take your turns to take attacks at each other, and the first person to run out of prizes wins, or the first person to run out of cards in their deck loses.
Yeah. Okay. Of course, playing the game is also only part of the Pokemon game as well. Obviously, collecting is a big part as well. We've got a friend who doesn't really have any kind of compulsion to play the game, but likes to collect the cards, for
Yes.
example. Our
Mm.
friend Sean. Um, yeah, it's funny because it really feels like, especially when you compare this to Magic the Gathering or something like that, the collection aspect of this game is, I think, a lot more appealing to people
Yeah, I think let's be honest. The game is targeted towards a younger audience, and
Yeah.
it has been for several years. Well, several years, a long time since its making. Like it was targeted. I was the target audience when I was 5-ish, and I was playing at school. And the target audience has stayed at the sort of older child stage, so like 5 to maybe 11, 12. I mean, obviously, there's always the sort of outliers that will want to play it as they get older, which, there's a nostalgia element, and people that are into their TCGs, or sort of quite hardcore collectors and fans of Pokemon in general. But it is aimed at kids at the end of the day, Pokemon.
Weirdly,
So,
Yeah. I'm
oh, go on. How did you, when you first got into it, did you get into it because of a game, or did you get into it because everyone was collecting it? So I was
collecting.
slightly older than you, and ours was no one was playing it. Everyone was just collecting it and swapping it. It was the first ever thing. Actually, that's a lie. It was the second ever thing where we were all swapping and trading stuff. The first one was Pogs for us. So it's that weird kind of
Yeah, we
I
had
knew you
Pogs,
were
and then
going to
we
go to
also had
Pogs. I
World
knew
Cup
it.
yes, that's it.
coins.
The little silver ones you could collect through the different
I had
things.
like 6
Yeah,
full
I did as well.
soldiers.
Everyone had
always
that, man.
remember.
Like there was too many of him.
Really, I always found it was Martin Keown was the one that everyone had
Oh
that
no,
didn't
it was
want.
skulls for
I
me.
think I had a lot of Gary Nevilles.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Anyway,
It's weird that we all got
yeah,
into
yeah.
it through the trading aspect as opposed to the game, and then the game sort of developed slightly later on, I
Well,
guess.
I think that's why that's the
Mm.
target audience, isn't it? Because if you can get kids into it, they'll
Oh,
spend their pocket
100%.
money on it, and they'll buy it. They'll trash their cards, and they'll buy more. It's as simple as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the TCG element is an added bonus,
Yeah.
I guess. But I genuinely think the Pokemon Company's idea is we sell cards to 8-year-olds who want shinies.
Yeah.
It's as simple
I
as that.
mean, I'm going to say something a little bit controversial here because Pokemon is generally seen as the gateway game into tradable card games and things like that. It generally tends to be the beginner one. I think the actual game itself is more complex than Magic the Gathering. I think Magic the Gathering is very, very basic, though the instructions on the cards tend to be a
The-
bit harder to understand
As
sometimes
a
compared to
core
the ones on
game,
Pokemon.
with absolutely no additional rules from cards,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think a lot of that also comes from the fact that because Magic the Gathering is so basic, you play lands that are your energy, you use the energy, and then you play the cards using the energy that you've got, and that energy keeps refreshing from round to round. I think Pokemon actually has a bit more management to it because obviously you attach energy to your Pokemon, and when they're used, they're gone on the attacks. So you have to actually
No.
think your way through things. I think a bit more. I think.
When you use unless it specifies on the attack, you don't lose that energy. It stays like a
Yeah,
land would.
but generally they do get spent, don't you, for the better attack? So you have to be more careful.
Not really,
about how you're actually
not
managing it.
really anymore. It's quite a rare trait for an attack.
Oh, okay, fair
Like
enough.
I think you're thinking Charizard used to have it, and you burn up all that energy, but it's not prevalent at all.
Yeah,
It's quite a rare thing, and it's because it's such a detrimental thing to have in your deck is to run through a bunch of energy cards. When
yeah,
realistically, what you want your deck to be is a few Pokemon, the energies you need to run them, and loads of trainer cards to just find those Pokemon and energies as soon as you can. That
Yeah.
is the sort of how the meta works at the minute.
yeah, yeah. But either way, I find that Pokemon does take a bit more thinking than, say, Magic the Gathering. A lot of the complexities of Magic the Gathering comes from the additional rules that are explained on the cards,
Yeah,
rather than the
I do
actual
I
core
do
game
disagree
itself.
with you. I think
Yeah.
Pokemon is simpler because it doesn't get any hard. Well, it does get a little bit. It doesn't get much harder than the initial set rules. Whereas
Yeah.
Magic has so many synergies and specialist cards and individual rule sets and things that change things in such a different way that there's not many Magic cards that are just basic creatures that do damage.
Yeah,
Like most Magic decks have specific synergies and things like that that need to change.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe
but
it's
with
just the fact
Pokemon
that
cards, yeah.
maybe it's just the fact that I started with Magic before going back to Pokemon. I find Magic the Gathering a lot easier to play than
It's weird
Pokemon.
because I've not really ever played that much, if any, of the Magic games at all, which is weird. It's one of those things where it appeals to me, but it just doesn't at the same time. And I remember when you guys were trying to
Yeah.
explain it to me, I couldn't get my head around it, which is weird considering most card games follow a simple or similar kind of thing of you need to pay a cost with something or blah 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 blah. For some reason it put me off a little bit. Like whereas Pokemon, I I guess I probably have to agree with Ian a little bit. Pokemon is very simple from its core. It's very simple. You can add extra stuff, like obviously there's evolutions, there's different texts and
I mean,
stuff.
even then, like that's nowhere near as complex as like the magic complexity can get in like the
Yeah, but I
magic.
mean,
Like in what you're doing on if you're specializing a deck to do specific things, Magic gets a lot more complicated than just the basics of Pokemon, which you don't get too much further with. I mean, the truly meta decks, like one I remember that it was a bit complicated was like the Blastoise deck, where you had to you discarded the Blastoise so that you could play it straight from your discard pile and
that's mad.
things like that. I mean, it's again that's the sort of meta level stuff that people do
Mm.
to try and make the game as streamlined as possible so their deck functions.
Yeah,
But
I think it's
um, that stuff can get seriously, but usually it is just there are certain cards that are better than others, and if you don't have them in your deck, you will not compete on an international stage. It's as simple as that. If you look through like the
the
decks
champion decks will they'd all
in
have like a similar
the
thing, wouldn't they?
championship decks, they are all the same
Mm.
core. Yeah, like they're all of the championship decks have exactly the same core cards, and a couple of them have specific cards to let them do their particular gimmick. But the base trainer cards, usually the layout of energy tends to be the same. It's not a lot different.
Yeah. Okay. What memories do you have of playing Pokemon then? I've actually only played it a handful of times, to be honest.
A
So
lot of my memories is that there's only one person in my childhood who competed with me at the level that I played Pokemon cards at. So my friend Callum competed with me at a similar level. So he put a lot of thought into his decks and had a specialist function for these decks and things like that. A lot of my friends just built basic decks, and what sort of happened from that is I kind of got a reputation as someone who played a bit of a meta deck and beat people for the sake of beating people, and not for the sake of having fun. Um, and the same can be said for Callum. He had exactly the same reputation. The only sort of main difference is Callum has that reputation for lots of card games, so it's sort of mine was lesser so. But I think if you want to play it seriously, you need to have a group to play it seriously with. But my general memories of it are a lot of salt. Um, People like going really young is people trading things for things they shouldn't and getting a little bit cross.
yeah,
Um, and then as I get older, it's playing people who aren't as into it as I am, and maybe steamrolling them a little. And I think that's what led me out of playing the game, is that I only had one viable opponent. Especially when I went to uni, I didn't know anyone that played it, so I think that's sort of when it petered out for me a little bit. But memory-wise, I enjoy the game, and I think I enjoy building the decks that have a theme in my head more than playing them. Um, I sort of built a deck because obviously I know Sean's more of a collector, but he did build a deck at one point relatively recently in the last year or so, and I built a deck to play against Sean, and Sean built his deck based on the cards he had, and I built my deck based on the cards I wanted.
right.
Um, and what ended up happening was again a bit of a steamroll. So it's difficult because the people that want to get into it don't understand it as well, and it takes someone teaching to do it. And I think I did that for you guys for a bit.
You
And
did
Yeah, I
do
think
that
so.
for me,
Yeah.
definitely.
Jordan and both Sean's that I know, I spent some time trying to teach them how to work their deck. But I think there's a level of financial and time commitment into building your own successful deck.
Ooh, do you know? I think this actually brings me into one of my memories from Pokemon. Actually, you saying that.
Is this going to
Um,
be you bought a card set, you spent a lot of money, you got one good card, and you looked at that card and thought that's not worth 30 quid of my time?
I think it was more a case of I think I bought a booster box, I think. I bought a lot of cards, put it that way, and I got you to go through and pick out all the cards that weren't
I remember
trash.
this.
And
I think they just
out
went
of
trash, trash, trash,
yeah, yeah,
trash,
yeah.
usable, trash, trash, usable, usable, rare, trash, 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 trash.
So I can clearly remember what actually happened was you ended up with 3 cards at the end of it that you said, yeah, these 3 are good, everything else is trash. Basically, out of an entire booster box.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is worth noting as well that there are some cards that can specifically be good for specific decks, and
yeah,
I can't remember now whether I went through your cards thinking, is this stuff valuable, or whether I went through and said, is this stuff um, usable in a deck. I imagine it was
yeah,
a bit of both, and I think there was a pile of stuff that was usable and a pile of stuff that was rare.
yeah, I think so, yeah.
But it still wasn't a lot.
Yeah, I still very clearly remember there was this massive pile of all stuff that was just, yeah, that's all trash. And then 3 cards just put to one side that were, yeah, these 3 are good. And that was about it. Like I said, that's really something more on the collecting side of things for this game. But that's definitely
They
probably my
do
strongest memory from it, I
they
think.
do. I don't want to say fix, but they do it in such a way that people are left wanting to buy more booster packs for obvious reasons, because kids will keep buying booster packs until they get the cool cards they want, and then they'll trade some stuff, and then they'll buy some more booster packs. It's just the nature of how kids function, and
Well,
I think that's where their money comes from. It's not
yeah.
from the international tournaments and stuff like that.
I mean, I'm guessing that is obviously something that plays into it. If you get a really good stage 3 evolution card, you naturally want to go and then try and start finding a way to get the stage 2 and the basic
Yeah, I
version.
think so.
Well, you're probably going to have the basic version, aren't you, of most cards? I would
Usually
say.
you will.
You're
Yeah.
either missing. I always find I'm missing one in the evolutionary chain. It doesn't matter which one it is. It's always like either the middle or the end, and it's one of those things that you know that the card eventually would be really good or whatever, but you're just kind of like, But then, so this is the thing where we were different between.
And then you need 4 of them to
Yeah,
make it a
exactly.
worthwhile experience. Because to put it in your deck and to build your deck around it, you need 3 or 4 most of the time. I mean, I know a lot of meta decks at the minute have 1 or 2 of certain things, and you're relying on pulling the right trainer card to find that card to make your deck function. But I think on a basic level, you do want multiples of that card, so you're more likely to find it.
I think the where we kind of differed a little bit was I actually quite enjoyed playing the pre-constructed decks just as a base game, like as a really simple bare bones kind of experience rather than kind of having to upgrade them.
It's made not fun
But
by
this
the
is the
meta.
thing, yeah. I know when I played you with, I can't remember what it was, but we basically tried making 2 heat decks, didn't we? I think between the 2 of us.
Oh, we set a rule. So this was a time where EXs were
Yeah.
the key. We set a rule of saying you are not allowed to use EXs in the deck. We're building decks for fun and not for EX is
Yeah.
really strong. So I'll
So
just
we
build my deck
also,
with them. And I built a burn deck. I don't know if yours was burn. Mine was based around entirely how much
I think
damage can
mine
you
was
get out of burns, which is recognised officially as the shittest
was mine
status
electric?
condition
Actually,
in
it might have been the
Pokemon.
electric one I was playing with.
I think you had an electric one and you had
Yeah,
a
I think it
fire
was
one.
just
But
testing one out.
my plan was to literally buy only cards that cause burns and do all of my damage through burns. I mean, there's a lot of poison decks.
Your
that
old
do
one
that
did that,
in
didn't it?
Pokemon, but yeah, there's not many that do it with burn. So I thought it'd be funny. So I've got like a Volcarona card that does burns, and an Arcanine card that did burns, and a Stadium that doubled the damage of burns, and things like that.
But
It
yeah,
was,
basically,
it was a super non-functional deck. If I wanted to play against anyone with any EX cards or any sort of skill, they would have beaten it.
yeah. No, it's a
Perfect.
weird. It was a weird kind of thing where we were sort of trying to make these limits to the cards, but where the pre-constructed decks, which are like what a tenner usually, I think something like that, maybe less.
Yeah, £12
Yeah,
99.
so I picked up a couple of the older style ones, and some of them had some really unique. Yeah, they did and they didn't. It was a Delphox deck I think I had, and one of the things that was really interesting about it, although again, like you say, if you were to play it against someone who knew what they were doing, so like you, for instance, I would have no GXs, no EXs, nothing like that. I'd be playing a basic game, and you'd have probably be able to steamroll me 100%. But when you're playing, me and one of my other mates, we tried doing just where it was just basic starter decks. So only starter decks, and that was it. There wasn't an option to go into. You could make them if you wanted to, but they had to be very basic, like just the evolutions, no EXs, none of that kind of like extra sort of abilities and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And we actually had quite a good time playing it because it was more with the constructed decks. They are designed to be what they are, and there are a certain path you can find that you would follow. Like for instance, the Delphox decks worked with I think it was how much energy you had on the field, so it was yours and the teammates. Sorry, the enemies.
Yeah, it's like Babby's first Mewtwo.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, 100%. Which then, yeah, it's very similar. Like you build it all up and it times us by whatever that is, and it can absolutely destroy stuff, which is really really cool. And obviously that was fun because it was nice to have this kind of like goal to try and achieve. Like I knew I had to try and build up this power and this energy, whereas the other cards were more like defense and they had to kind of try and protect those cards. So you'd have stuff that was really hard to sort of knock down but didn't do too much else or would heal and stuff like that. And then I came across the arena decks, which were the decks sort of designed to sort of opposite each other. So it was a Darkrai and a Mewtwo deck, and it was pretty much. I think you were saying at one point this Mewtwo deck was pretty meta, where it was
So the Mewtwo deck had the old Mewtwo
yeah,
EX card,
Shadow
and
Ball, I think, wasn't it?
that there were cards that sorry, there were decks that didn't focus on its type, and they still had that
Okay,
card in it. So, like you'd have decks that weren't even able to use both moves on that card because one of the moves was so broken that it was
okay,
worth it. So that card was stupid
yeah,
and OP, and it was in
okay,
every
that
deck.
makes more sense. So this was more of a psychic deck, to be fair. It was actually built around the character and stuff, which was quite cool. But again,
Yeah.
same sort of thing. You stacked up as much energy as possible, and you could obliterate every character. Um, so it's kind of crazy. I I think after
The balance there as well as that Darkrai was
yeah,
also very
which
high on the
was
meta
I think
chain.
the alternative both for the because it was a double set at the time. They don't seem to do that now. I think they do separate arena decks. You buy them separately, but the original one was they were bundled together, and in it they both give you a kind of cheat sheet and how to kind of make this deck work to your like the best advantage. And it showed you obviously this one's a dark deck, this one is more powerful against such and such, and this is how you defend against that. So it was very much trying to treat you to kind of getting a bit more advanced stage than the normal starter decks, I guess, which is quite cool. It gave you more of a sort of taste of the not meta, but like the higher up kind of level skills. But it's a weird thing because they seem to keep doing this with the game. Like I think when we sort of come back to it, or when I kind of came back to it, they were doing break cards, weren't they?
Uh, I guess yeah, that was about
Yeah, that
4
makes
years
sense.
ago, so that
So the
sounds
break
about right.
cards I found really interesting because they were essentially they were almost like a fourth evolution on top of basic stuff. So you would add the
It's interesting because the break stuff is something I think is a damn sight cooler than
yeah,
the EX
100%.
cards. It's a supplementary card that powers up your last chain evolution Pokemon. So you have Arcanine break, and you'd put it on top of your Arcanine. You get extra
Yeah,
stuff
you don't
for
lose
it.
any of the previous cards' skills. You just gain an extra thing, and usually extra HP and stuff like that. And I found that really really cool because you're building up to this last kind of all-out attack kind of thing. And a lot of those did kind of discard energies and stuff like that. And it just made for me,
Mm.
I found that really fun. And then when we kind of sort of looked at the EX stuff and all that kind of stuff, I wasn't as impressed with that, and they sort of dropped break cards quite quickly.
EX felt like they were trying to streamline the game. And while that was good, what ended up happening was it forced it into this weird meta where like every meta deck would be um, you'd have the Mewtwo EX card, you'd have the Keldeo EX card, and the Keldeo was there literally because it had an ability to let it free
Yeah,
switch
that was
in.
it.
So you'd put a float stone on one card, you'd free switch in with the Keldeo, so a float stone was allowed to retreat cost for free. The Keldeo would use its ability to switch in, and then no, you put the float stone on the Keldeo, sorry. So you'd switch in for free, and then switch it straight back out to get rid of any status conditions. So decks with status conditions just end up getting completely nerfed by that. But then it was also around the time that hypnotoxic laser was very prevalent, so people would just reapply the status conditions, and you'd have to. It's a weird balance, but I personally don't feel like the meta was any fun at
It
that
was
point.
yeah.
It was all the same cards being reused, and to some extent, it still suffers from that a little bit. It's gotten better, but it's still if you don't have the top heavy cards, you're not winning
I think
games.
this was the issue I found with I like started going through quite a phase of trying to collect the championship decks because the thing maybe not all of them, but at least one from each kind of turn, because they had these really nice kind of wherever they came from. So I think I had a Hawaiian one.
The
Yeah,
Hawaii
and they were
ones were
nice.
nice.
Each
Yeah,
card had its own like special back, and it was signed by the player that sort of that used it in the tournament.
it had a print of the signature, not
No, no,
an
of course,
actual
no, yeah, but
signature.
they
Yeah,
obviously were copies. But it was just nice to sort of see that someone actually used this and how it kind of plays. And they had like a nice deck box to them. They usually came with like a little pin from the time.
yeah. So they had a different backing, so you couldn't use
Yeah,
them in tournament
they
play
weren't
because
legal,
you wouldn't want anyone having the really good cards without having to pay the stupid money of buying loads of
yeah,
booster boxes for it.
which was
But the, the
oh,
the the tournament decks are really good for obvious reasons. They are the decks that people won tournaments with. But when you look through them, and you can look at the back, they've all got the same contents other than the gimmick of
so
the
this is
deck.
what I was going to say. At 1 year, I think it was all the Keldeos, and I remember sort of looking, going, well, why have I
Yeah.
bought a couple of them because I wanted the character cards and stuff. But I was sort of like, why is this the thing that everyone's using this? And like you say, float stones, they were all in there. And then when you kind of look through it,
Floatstones,
yeah,
the hypnotoxic lasers, Keldeos, Terrakions,
the various
Mewtwo's.
different like arenas,
It's
stuff like that to try and
ridiculous.
boost everything. It was crazy. Like they were all more or less, like you say, card for card the same, bar Rayquaza or whatever, like something that was their one character kind of thing. And it was
Yeah.
just weird that like that was the standard. And it's a shame that
But something Callum once said to me, which it stuck with me because it's not something I'd noticed until he said it, and is there is no other successful TCG game that you play where it's completely common to discard your entire hand and draw 7 cards. Like that is in Pokemon completely normal, completely accepted, and usually part of the meta.
yeah.
Year by year, it changes slightly because the cards change, but there'll be cards which you go right, discard your entire hand, draw 7 cards, and people just run through their decks to look for the cards they want, and then they use cards to pull things out of the discard
Mm.
pile. That is not. I've never seen that in any other TCG. People can correct me, of course, and I'd encourage them to do so. But I've never seen that before. He'd never seen that before. And I mean, you guys seen that as a thing
Um,
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Possibly.
where you'd mill yourself just to run through your deck and find what you need. Like
I
it's not
think
common.
maybe with a card ability, maybe I can think of a couple that would do it, but not as a
No,
standard.
I I don't, yeah, I don't think any other card game uses it so frequently. I don't I don't think it's present much, and if it is, it's not something that's considered a positive.
Yeah, I would
But with
say that
Pokemon, it's
if
considered part of the meta play, just to burn and run through your deck to look for stuff specifically. And the idea behind Pokemon really is that you have loads of trainer cards to hunt for exactly what you need, and hardly any of what
Yeah.
you need.
yeah, I mean the only things I can really think of is I think there's similar things to that in things like Magic the Gathering, but it's usually very focused on if you're playing a blue type. It's not something that's frequent
Yeah,
throughout the
I know
game.
there's death decks in Magic where you're encouraged to discard your own card and
Yeah,
resurrect them and things, but it's not commonplace.
Was there something in
no,
Warhammer
definitely
Champions
not.
that was quite similar to that? In a couple like the vampire type decks, I feel like there was
Um,
stuff like that as well, where you sacrificed your.
Possibly, but again, it's still not built around you want to discard all this stuff so you can bring it
it's
all
still
back.
very
It's just
faction
if this
specific
goes
and
down, you
stuff.
can bring it back, or if this
Yeah,
happens, you can resurrect at half strength or something, stuff like that. Whereas Pokemon, you're almost actively encouraged to burn through half your deck and then pull it out of the discard pile
Yeah.
as you need it.
yeah. I think the last thing I really wanted to talk about was, and again, I think this is something that is only prevalent in a couple of other tradable card games, is the focus on taking your collection online.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about this. Well, not ask you. I was going to say about this. I found that most of the time I was playing the game online um, more than I was in actual real life, because the only
Yeah,
thing I would say is you can't bring all of your cards that you would to the game. So you are pretty much, it's annoying. It's kind of an online booster system, which is kind of weird. So like you still get a randomized set of
yeah,
cards, you still get a random kind of bits and bobs.
You don't get the same cards
No.
you would have got unless it's like the face card of a specific
Yeah,
deck or
so
box.
you could obviously the
Yeah.
only things you could do were you got like all like cards from say standard starter decks, which would give you that standard starter deck. So I have a couple of those on the game that I had. Uh, but then I had like a collection of cards that aren't real, but they're much better than what I would have had in real life, which is kind of a crazy because you could start trying to make a deck online, which is amazing, but to try and make it in the real world, it's going to cost a lot of money. But
Yeah, you end up buying stuff on eBay at
yeah,
12 quid a pop for the better
so we
cards,
kind
and
of did this with Star Wars Destiny a little bit as well.
I
Yeah,
definitely did this with Star
and
Wars
it was
Destiny, and there were set cards that I felt like I needed to make my deck effective. I wasn't playing
you
particularly
just
meta-y
wanted to make the
decks. I was
character decks and
playing
stuff.
there were decks with cool themes, but they would not be effective unless I had these
Mm.
specific cards. So it was sort of like, yes, I could play the Boba Fett Jango Fett combo against Daryl, but it would get steamrolled unless I had decent weapons to give them or decent cards to support them. So I ended up buying the decent cards so the deck was at least usable. And a similar thing happens with Pokemon, except it's everyone buys exactly the same cards, so the good cards are super
Yeah,
expensive. This
Yeah.
is why I think a lot of people who play casually do buy the tournament decks and then just use a card backer so people can't see what card set it's from. I know I've done that in the past. It's
Yeah.
sort of makes it much more bearable.
I will say, I definitely would probably credit Pokemon with as the company that innovated the idea of transferring their game to an online mode. I know a lot of them do it now, like you can bring up
yeah, yeah.
Lightbringers, Warhammer Champions, things like that. There's loads of companies that do it now, but I definitely feel
I
like
think
Pokemon are the ones who
Pokemon have been
innovated it.
doing it longer. Like the Pokemon TCG, you could play it on your computer when the game came out.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
they gave you a thing to play on the computer. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to get your deck, but like that was the first sort of iteration of it in my memory, other than like the like Game Boy
Mm.
Yu-Gi-Oh game.
yeah,
And then yeah, as soon as there was an opportunity to put it online, I think Pokemon cards went online. I mean that's been around for a long time.
I would say.
yeah.
Oh, go on.
Anyway,
Sorry. I would say though, if you
to
got if anyone was kind of interested in trying to play it and not spend massive amounts of money, I would definitely 100% recommend the actual online game because it does teach you how to play it and it
Oh
will
yeah,
give you a kind of basis to start with.
play against the computer because if you play against other people, they'll
Yeah.
steamroll you. Because
yeah,
everyone does have a meta deck on there now. You're not often playing people with like initial
No,
out of the
100%.
box decks from a store. You're playing against people who have spent the time because you can trade and sell things on there. So people who specifically built their decks. I mean, I know there was a deck that I've got in real life now that I initially built by accident on the online one. I liked how it played so much, and it was based around a Malamar card, which put everything to sleep when you
It's
put an
cool.
energy on it. And then I built it alongside a shift drive card, which made your opponent only flip a certain side of the coin, I think. So it worked in such a way that half the time they were flipping to see if they woke up, they were failing. So
oh,
the opposition Pokemon stayed asleep for longer. So it was a cool deck. I don't think you can use it. I think the shift dries out of um, the current use. But yeah, it was a cool deck, and I think if people are going to get into it, the online play is the way to go. And if you enjoy that, then maybe look at
Mm.
clubs from there. But I think the community, in terms of playing for Pokemon, unless you're playing 8-year-olds, is people who take it fairly seriously with the current meta and stay up to date and spend money buying specific cards off like Magic Madhouse and
I think
things.
that's a shame.
yeah. Okay, I will say we'll probably wrap this up at around this point. The last thing I wanted to say was, can you come up with a pun on your name for a Pokemon? Mine would be really easy. You just take Eevee and just go Stevie.
Yeah.
You
Uh,
guys?
Daryl
Um,
Marrow.
oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
Rhyperion.
Rhyperion. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
yeah.
good. Wow. Wow,
Um,
that was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Nice. Yeah,
there's probably a lot more, like Empoleon
yeah,
is a good one. He's
yeah.
also a cool penguin, so bonus.
Nice. Cool. With that, we did not get
Vaporeon.
any.
Jolty and
Basically, all of
Hey,
Leafy.
okay, all of the
Sylvia's.
Ians, yeah. Right, on that, we didn't actually get any pictures of us as cowboys being protected by the barrels, which was a little disappointing. But hey,
Should I draw one?
yeah, by all means, please do.
In fact, I'm talking to someone who's an artist tonight.
Oh,
I'll get her
God.
to draw it.
No, she's
Nice.
she's definitely
Nice.
got her hands full with the previous artwork requested.
Cool. But hey, if you want to have a go at it, we've still got our mailbag@everybodydice.com that you can send them to. Apart from that, if you would like to follow us on our social medias, you can on Twitter @everybodydice and on Instagram @everybodydiceshow. And you can find all of our stuff in one place at everybodydice.com. There should be some videos on the screen right now around here. Please do click on them, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, see you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.